Roosevelt's exuberant campaign was manifestly successful. He doubled the number of national parks, created 150 national forests, and one journalist commented that if Roosevelt continued to create reserves, there would be little ground left to bury folks on. Roosevelt's passion for saving the wilderness stayed with him after his presidency ended. It is barbarism to ravage the woods and fields, rooting out the mayflower and breaking branches of dogwood as ornaments. A grove of giant redwoods or sequoias should be kept just as we keep a great and beautiful cathedral. Shortly before Roosevelt went to Norway to accept his Peace Prize in 1910, he gave a lecture at the Sorbonne. It is not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles, or where the doer of deeds could have done better. The credit belongs to the man in the arena, whose face is marred by dust, sweat, and blood, who strives valiantly, who knows the great enthusiasms, the great devotions, who spends himself in a worthy cause, who at best knows, in the end, the triumph of high achievement, and who at worst, if he fails, at least fails while daring greatly, that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who have known neither victory nor defeat. John Muir was different from Roosevelt in 1,000 particulars. An immigrant Scot who knew neither a loving father nor a privileged upbringing, he preferred the company of mountains to that of men, but like Roosevelt, he had a passion for wild places and a persuasive exuberance that vaulted passion into action. Glorious was a term Muir would invoke time and again in his accounts of nature, despite his conscious attempts to eradicate it from his writing. Glorious joy and exhilaration, no matter how often he scratched those words out, they sprang up again. His exultant roots were deep, and never, as a writer or speaker, was he able to bridle the abounding delight of his language. Muir left university without a degree and wandered off into the University of the Wilderness. This glorious botanical and geological excursion would last 50 years. When Muir was 30 years old, he saw Yosemite for the first time. Everything was glowing with heaven's unquenchable enthusiasm. I tremble with excitement in the dawn of these glorious mountains, but I can only gaze and wonder. Watching the sun come up between the mountain peaks and over the dome of Yosemite, he proclaimed that our Camp Grove fills and thrills with the glorious light. Whether he was climbing in the Sierra or exploring an Alaskan glacier, Muir's fiery, joyous relationship with nature burned on. His exuberance found a match only in nature. Every summer, my gains from God's wilds grow greater. This last summer seems the greatest of all. For the first few weeks, I was feverishly excited by the boundless exuberance of the woods and wilderness. Having taken communion with the woods, Muir offered up the following: the salvation of wilderness is not an abstraction. He understood nature, felt nature, and illuminated her to those who did not. The slaying of wilderness was to him personal and intolerable. Muir threw himself into saving the great groves of sequoias and mountain ranges of Yosemite. He branded others with his almost painful awareness of the wilderness, attempting to make them feel some measure of what he felt acutely. Muir was always discovering to me things which I would never have seen myself, and opening up to me new avenues of knowledge, delight, and adoration. How often have I longed for the presence of Muir to heighten my own enjoyment by his higher ecstasy, or reveal to me what I was too dull to see or understand. Person after person acknowledged a debt of comprehension. To have explored with Muir the great glacier which bears his name is to have wandered with him in Yosemite, to have come through his enthusiasm and vision a little nearer the hidden mysteries of nature. One of those who paid attention to Muir was the President of the U.S. I write to you personally to express the hope that you will be able to take me through the Yosemite. I do not want anyone else but you with me. And Muir wrote to his wife, I had a perfectly glorious time with the President and the mountains. I fairly fell in love with him. Roosevelt, who declared he had never felt better in his life, was no less enthusiastic in his letter to Muir. And Muir and Roosevelt were exuberant men, infectiously enthusiastic. They left the country a wilder and more beautiful place because of their vision and action. For Muir, it was a single, sustained, and consistent life's passion to preserve the wilderness. For Roosevelt, there would be many other crusades to engage his energies over a long, diverse political life. But because Roosevelt was a politician, because he had so many other passions, he was on a wider arena with a more powerful scope. All of us who give service and stand ready for sacrifice are the torch bearers, wrote Roosevelt. We run with the torches until we fall, content if we can pass them to the hands of other runners. These are the torch bearers. These are they who have dared the great adventure. Muir spoke of a more inward journey. I only went out for a walk, and have finally concluded to stay out until sundown, for going out, I found, was really going in.